Today's show is going to be talking about mental wellness, brain health, and what you can do to help make a difference in your own life. I am so excited. This is like a personal treat for me to have Chris Johnson, the Chris Johnson, in the studio with us today. Hi, Chris. How are you?
Hey, Paula. How are you?
I'm doing great. You know, I'm trying to figure out how to introduce you. One of the things I said was the hardest part of this show today was figuring out all the titles. But, you know, global performance, author, speaker, international speaker, founder of On Target Living. The list goes on and on. But for most of your adult life, you have been promoting, supporting, and making certain that people can live their best life. Talk a little bit about your journey. Then we're going to get into some issues around brain health, which is just paramount today.
Yeah, I'm born and raised in the Lansing area. Went to Sexton High School, and then I went to college at Western Michigan, and I was an economics business major. And I was always interested in working out and fitness and playing and sports. And then I got out of school, and everybody told me, you got to get into business. Well, I realized very quickly that maybe that wasn't my calling. Mm-hmm. So I went back to grad school at Michigan State, got my master's in exercise physiology, and then started in the fitness world. I worked for a doctor for a couple of years, private practice doc. I worked at a wellness center in Grand Rapids doing stress testing in a hospital. So I had a lot of background in the medical side. And then I took the medical side into the traditional fitness side and worked at the Michigan Athletic Club for 17 years, running one of the largest personal training programs in the world. And then I started speaking. And then speaking kind of led me into develop my own company called On Target Living. And that's where we're here today. So I travel around the world speaking to corporations and helping their people feel and be their best.
Wow. When people think of fitness, they think of exercise. What I love about your philosophy and ideology is that it's so much more than just exercise. It's life-changing. It's a mindset. It's life-changing.
Well, for many years, I realized very quickly that people would work out, but they're missing sleep. They're missing the ability to breathe, to understand the stress, what they're eating, not eating. Their numbers aren't really in good shape. And so there's a lot more to it. And then bottom line is everybody wants to feel good. Mm-hmm. And so not everybody wants to lose weight. Not everybody wants to be the strongest person, but everybody wants to feel good. So I kept looking at what are the components to help people be their best, feel their best. And that was the foundation and pillars of resting, eating, and moving. And if you can kind of do a little bit of each one, just a little bit, then you get people to start gravitating into building habits along the way.
You know, we're going to talk a little bit about brain health, but I remember when you talked about rest, and I was convicted because ever since I was in high school, I remember sharing with our team that, I know you've done some work with our team here at AARP, that ever since high school, I've been getting like 5 hours of sleep. I'm good. 5 hours is all I need. 5 hours is all I need. And you shared with me, just do 30-minute increments. Don't try to get 8 right away. Don't try to get 7. Just small little increments of increasing your sleep and how to get there. And I'm telling you, it has made such a difference. I can actually think all day now rather than just showing up.
Well, I'm afraid of you sometimes.
That's it. You should be.
And I am. But when you think about some of the things in lifestyle, that's where people get it wrong. Mm-hmm. They think, I'm not working out. I need to work out a lot. Mm-hmm. I'm not eating right. I need to eat perfect. So it's the same thing with rest. Instead of telling people, I always ask the question, how many of you like to get 8 hours of sleep? Mm-hmm. Everybody wants to get 8 hours of sleep, but how do you do it?
Right.
So if you're sleeping 5 hours, let's go to 5 hours and 30 minutes. Mm-hmm. Let's not even think about 8 hours, because that's how if I can get you to drink one more glass of water, that's how it starts to roll.
Right. And our entire team, I just want to give you some kudos because I know you've come into our office and done some sessions for us for a year. And the health improvements of our entire team have significantly improved, starting with the cod liver oil. But we'll talk about that. The good stuff, not the old grandma stuff, but the good stuff. But anyway, let's talk a little bit about brain health right now. And just mental health in general. This pandemic has just taken a toll not only on people's personal life and relationships, but also on their mental health. Even you couldn't go to church, you couldn't see your loved ones, you couldn't go, all the things that we could not do, even just what's going on in the world, the civil unrest. People are stressed out in ways that they've never been stressed out before. What would you suggest folks do? And what are some signs? And how can we do to make certain that our brain and our mind...
Well, I think the big thing is when you just look at mental health overall, you got to get back into your body. As simple as it sounds. And then you can go more detailed into brain health itself. But overall mental health, you got to get back in your body. And that's just as simple as changing your breathing. It's the fastest way to calm the mind, relax the body. So if you can teach people how to use the diaphragm, breathe through their nose, 4-second inhalation, 6-second exhalation, not only is it going to overall health, but it's going to now calm the mind.
Let's do that. Let's do it right now.
So again, if I'm just sitting up straight and I just put my hand on my belly and put my other hand on my chest, and as I take a deep breath, I'm going to breathe only through my nose. My belly should expand. My chest is not moving. So now I'm using my diaphragm. When I exhale, so I'm not holding my breath, when I exhale, it should be about a 4 to 6 to 8 second exhalation. It's always the key is the exhalation, not the inhalation. So if you try this again, 4-second inhalation, belly goes out like a balloon. And then when you exhale it, 4, 5, 6, 8 seconds, and that's the magic. So that's not only going to help lower your blood pressure, that's going to help do all sorts of wonderful things, help you get a better night's sleep, but it's really going to help calm the mind, relax
You know
the
what
body.
else has helped with? When you're standing in line at a grocery store somewhere, and you're like, yeah, come on. Why you got 15 items? It's a 12-item lane. And you take that deep breath.
Well, and again, back to the
nice.
mental health. So if people don't really understand stress is physical. So your stressors, my stressors might be completely different, but if we feel threatened, the body's going to react physically. And the first thing that happens physically is muscles contract, pupils dilate, all that kind of stuff, but digestion starts to shut down. Here comes my immune system. So when the stress button is on, we're not going to have good mental health. And so recognize that, have that awareness, and then from there you say, okay, what can I do? And that big part of that is breathing. Number 2, when you look at overall mental health, if you can get people just to move their body for 5 minutes, walking, just whatever it is, playing, whatever, stretching, motion creates positive emotion. So if you can get people just to move a little bit, because about 85 to 90% of our population does not move. So I always take the challenge, move your body every single day for 5 minutes. Can you do that? Everybody goes, oh, I can do that. Because 5 minutes is going to go to 7 minutes to 8 minutes to, the list goes on. So, and the last thing is understanding the power of food, because that's where energy comes from. So if you can get a better night's sleep, you're breathing better, now mental health starts to, because if you would look at some of the mental health drugs out there, what do? And a big part of that is they help keep serotonin in the brain longer. Well, what if you ate more foods that are higher in serotonin? So you can see how this starts to roll. So mental health is a big deal, but I always say, step 1, get back in your body. Breathe, sleep, move, eat, drink enough water.
Simple.
It's so simple, but we don't look at, there's no money in prevention. And this is where the magic is, in my opinion, especially when we're talking about mental health.
Well, that's a huge statement. There's no money in prevention, because what do we do as Americans? What we generally do is take our insurance card, go to the doctor, and say, can I have a pill or something for sleeping, or drug for sleeping, or can I have something for the indigestion, or whatever it is. First is trying to look inside.
Well, the other thing too, I always like to support the medical profession too, because imagine if you had 2 doors. Door number 1, you have to do the work. Door number 2 is you're going to probably be heavily medicated, but you don't have to do much work. So if you allow the medical professionals to let you choose, how many people are going to take this door? And number 2, are you going to take this door, but are you actually going to do it? So you can see the dilemma they're facing. So if I come in with high blood pressure, I have anxiety, what am I going to do? Well, number 1, we probably don't have enough time to train them. Number 2, are they going to actually do it? So there's a lot of challenges out there, but prevention is really, we all have to take more ownership in our health.
So is that being taught in medical school?
No.
And I know you work with, and you consult with a group of doctors about this type of thing. Why isn't it being taught?
Well, there's a lot behind that. I put some of that stuff in my latest book, but number 1 is it's not taught. Number 2 is, why is it not taught? Well, again, there's no money in it. So you have to change the whole system. You're seeing concierge medicine like never before, because now the doctors and health professionals have more time. So when I get somebody to come in for the first time, I may be talking to you for an hour just on what your lifestyle looks like. It takes a lot of time. And number 2, it takes a lot of training. And so when you put that 2 together, how are you going to be compensated?
And
so
they're not necessarily the same. I mean, the science of the medical...
It could be fantastic. That's the key. It's the partnership of both. But we have to understand that if I come in and I have anxiety, well, okay, that's the fear of the future. How do we get you to think a little differently? How do we get you to breathe differently?
So for someone who is listening to this program and they know that they're mentally stressed. They're worried, anxious about everything. What's the first thing they should do?
Well, first thing, number 2, is have that awareness. You just said it. So have that awareness. What's bothering me? So I always talk about reframing. So if you can have reframement, like, okay, if something's bothering me, dive into that a little deeper. Let's go a little deeper. So I talked about this when the pandemic hit. I'm a professional speaker. Speaking disappeared. So my wife Paula says to me, what are we going to do? I said, I don't know. This is what we do for a living. So I had to reframe. What could we do? How could we make this better? And the second piece is getting back into your body, and we begin with breathing. So you just said it. I'm in line. I'm stressed. I'm driving, or whatever it might be. Just note to self, it's a skill. We're not taught the skill. I know I should breathe, but most people are mouth breathers. Most people are chest breathers, and most people breathe too fast. So if you did the opposite, breathe through the nose, use your diaphragm, and slow it down, now that's a skill.
It's incredible. It sounds so simple, but I am here as a witness, and our team would show we're a witness. We have
think
done
about this for a minute.
It works.
Why aren't we not taught this in school?
Yes.
And so I've taught many principals that I teach this skill, and they're teaching this to all the teachers, and the teachers are sharing this with their students. So every class starts with a 1-minute breathing exercise.
Nice.
Well, the students are going to respond better, right?
Right, exactly.
So that's what we need to start getting back to, these simple things that are across the board being trained.
And for caregivers who are taking care of someone who has dementia or who has Alzheimer's or some form of brain incapacity with their brain, taking that same deep breath in terms of patience with as a caregiver, taking a deep breath when they're saying something or asking the same question 15 times or, just that breathing.
We're all challenged with that,
Yes.
So everybody's challenged with that. And stress is, the stressors are out there every shape and size, but when you feel threatened, your body's going to react physically. So you have to understand how to physically change that path.
What are some of the foods that you can eat that actually help your brain?
Well, make this really simple. If you think about the brain, about 50% of the brain is water. So I always start with water because most people come in the emergency rooms today are dehydrated. So if you can get people to have, and I tell 50 ounces a day, sounds like not much, but for many people are not drinking 50 ounces, so you start there like the sleep. 50 ounces, then you can slowly take it up. Number 2 is fat. So fats are really the raw material for brain health, the myelin sheath, everything that goes with that. So I always talk to people about, let's eat some nuts and seeds, walnuts, some almonds, make it really simple. And then you can go to your omega-3 fats or the magic pill for the brain, and that's going to be flax and chia, and as you mentioned earlier, cod liver oil. But if you can get people to start out, I got to drink enough water, and I got to consume some healthy fats, olive oil, maybe even avocado, the list goes on. Now I'm creating the raw material for that. And then you can get real specific with magnesium foods and things like that. But for many people, you just start out slowly. Coconut's incredible for the brain.
Not chocolate-covered coconut.
It could be.
Dark chocolate?
It could be the real chocolate, right?
Well, that's right.
The real chocolate, the cacao, right? Yes. That could be really, and that's really good for the brain. So we have to get back to let's make this really simple. Water, healthy fats, that's a big start for brain health.
And so if people just want to do 2 or 3 things, move 5 minutes every day, just move.
Because movement creates blood flow, which creates better brain health.
5 minutes?
5 minutes.
That's it?
Most people are not moving. So if I can get you to move for 5
When you define moving?
Oh, stretching, walking, just moving. Intentionally moving.
Okay.
Intentionally, I like that.
Yeah.
And then really be cognitive, like where do you park and where can you move, that kind of stuff. But we're not moving enough. If you have a second story, maybe I climb the stairs a little bit. But we have to get back to not working out 3 days a week. We need to get the change of mindset to move every day.
And so for people who do like working out and do like, what kinds of exercises, physical exercises can they do to help with the brain?
Well, I'm a big fan of just play. I love play. I think play is probably the greatest thing for the brain.
And you're very good at it.
Well, my mom always said that anything that has to do with the ball, but play is one of the greatest things. And we now know like ping pong or pickleball or tennis or anything like this is probably one of the greatest exercises for the brain. So if you can get some type of play involved, something that has coordination involved, that is the greatest thing for stimulation. We've trained before. doing balance training is great. Because when you're working on your balance, you're not thinking about anything else, and you're really getting the cognitive ability to start ramping up.
And one of the things I know, I think you shared, or somewhere I read somewhere, is that a lot of the falls that people take aren't because of the falls, but because the balance. That's the first thing.
Yeah, it's not that their bones are brittle, it's that they don't have the balance. And balance is strength, strength is balance. So strength training is a big deal, but also balance, some balance stuff and play when you put that all together. But that's what I love about, I turn 65 next month. So when you look at seniors, I always say, hey, you got to play. You play from the beginning of your life to the end of your life.
Absolutely.
And that's one of the greatest things for your brain.
Well, you and I have talked about this, and it's a pet peeve of ours, so full disclosure, that we're not teaching this in our K through 12 education system, that we're waiting, too late in life to have people understand how to take care of themselves. So for people who are listening, if you want to get on this bandwagon, it's a separate bandwagon just to promote healthy living in elementary school and high school, and the kinds of choices that young people can make impact their life later on significantly.
Yeah, because you think we have brain issues now? With the technology, and our latest podcast came out this last Monday on stillness. Our phones are almost taking more time now. We're on our phones more than we're sleeping.
Wow.
And that's never been in the history. We're almost crossing over right now. We're sleeping about 6.5 hours a day. We're on our phones 5.5 hours a day. So and then you think we're going to have brain issues, it's going to just keep going up. So we have to get back into the body. We got to get back to simple. The phone is not the problem. It's the stuff in the phone that causes you to be addicted to the phone.
And for older adults, people who don't have quite the same mobility that they have, the movement for them would look different than the movement for someone who...
It's all progressions. So if I take anybody, it doesn't matter if they have neuropathy and injuries or whatever, we just start out with some really basic movements and we start slowly progressing. And that's the key with movement, is progressing. If you can get people to walk forward and slowly walk backwards, walking backwards is one of the greatest balance exercises.
I've heard that, and even in terms of your mind and stimulate, yes.
Yeah, so again, if somebody's nervous about falling, make sure you're holding onto something like a wall or a railing, but walking backwards, you have to pick the foot up. So it's a different motor skill. The brain has to think differently. So now this is kind of like brain gym. And so if you can get people to walk forward, walk backwards, do some side steps, do some high leg movements, the brain has to work differently.
One of our dear friends and AARP volunteer, Dr. Saray Eaton, talked to us once even about brushing your teeth with the opposite hand or going to work differently. Don't drive the same way to work every day. Just little things like that.
Well, and Saray is, she's a genius, but that's exactly right. It's getting us out, because if you think about our habits, about 80 to 90% of what we do is habitual, which is a good thing. We'd be exhausted by the end of the day. But when you start changing a little bit of that habit pattern, then the brain has to go, what are you doing? So the brain has to work very challenged to do that kind of stuff.
And today we are so challenged by the workforce. Companies can't find the people that they need. So corporations also are adopting more healthy living policies for their employees. And so some of the things that employers can do to help with the employees there, talk about that a little bit, to make certain that they keep the ones that they have and they stay healthy.
Well, again, it could be an attraction, could be a way to keep your people, but the bottom line, it creates performance. You feel better, you perform better. One of our last books my son and I wrote, it was called Capacity, and we kept getting the roadblock that we'll get to the wellness piece when we have time. Well, your greatest asset is always your people, and the greatest asset of your people is their health. And during the pandemic, I think we've realized that if our people are not healthy or they're not feeling good, they're not going to be their best. And that's the major. It's just flipping the switch. We're seeing a lot more of that with organizations, big organizations, who are we got to do something for our people, because we spend most of our life at work.
Right, exactly. One of the things, and it's sort of sad to hear, but one of the things I hear frequently are people who already have Alzheimer's, dementia, and they think there's nothing they can do. There's no hope for them because they've already, gotten the disease. What can you do if you already have some early signs of Alzheimer's? We've got about a minute and a half left.
Yeah, so the last thing just mention here, that the human body is amazing in its ability to adapt. And we're always changing. We turn over about 1 million white blood cells every 10 seconds. We turn over 20 million red blood cells every 10 seconds. So that's telling the body's constantly in change. So there's never a time to give up. There's always a time that, hey, maybe I'm not going to go obviously where I was, but I can do some things to help me improve that. So if somebody already has it, again, back to the water, back to the healthy fats, because that's the raw material for the brain. And then from there, the breathing is powerful and just moving the body and changing. And when people have Alzheimer's, you really want to get them to move. That's probably the greatest things you can get to them, because they're not going to want to move. And the less they move, then everything else starts to fall apart. So even though the brain is having an issue, when you get the body moving, that's going to help the brain, but it's going to help everything else.
I just love this. I could talk about this all day long. Again, in full transparency, once I retire from AARP, I said I want to come and work with you, because you'll have me living to be 150 and healthy as I can be. So
still playing good golf.
Still
too.
playing good golf as well, absolutely, and getting ready to play pickleball. So appreciate you so much and all that you do. And
my pleasure.
Don't stop fighting the good fight. We need you. We need your voice. We need you out there advocating on behalf of all of us. And it's all about wholeness, wellness, performance, everything, not just one part of that. So thank you, Chris Johnson. You are amazing. Appreciate you being here. And thank you for watching AARP Real Possibilities.
My name is Rachel Wheelock. I'm a PA at Great Lakes Center of Rheumatology. I'm a rheumatologist. I'm here today to talk to you about a pretty common autoimmune disease called rheumatoid arthritis. So common questions are what is rheumatoid arthritis? And it's essentially is a chronic inflammatory condition where your body is attacking mainly the joints. And that can be very problematic for patients. Once diagnosed, it is often a lifelong disease, which is unfortunate. However, we do have various treatment options for that, which I will discuss with you today. Some patients are lucky and will go into a very deep remission, meaning that they have no disease activity and they do not need to be on any treatments. I would say that's pretty rare, and for the most part, patients do need to be treated long term. So what are some signs and symptoms of rheumatoid arthritis? They can be very broad, but for the most part, the most common symptoms are joint pains and swelling, most commonly in the small joints like the hands and the wrist. However, we can also see some of the symptoms in the larger joints like the hips, the knees, and the shoulders, as well as the back. Most of the joints are on both sides of the body, but not always. A common question is, why do people get this? We're really not entirely sure, but we do suspect that there's a combination of genetics that play a role, although we can see isolated cases, meaning there's no family history. We also suspect that things like pollution and smoking can play a role in this too, and we even have had patients who were diagnosed after a severe viral or bacterial infection. Another main common question that we get asked is, how do we diagnose this? We usually can do this by a combination of things like your physical exam, a good thorough history taking, labs, and x-rays. Sometimes patients actually can have completely normal workup, and that still means that they can have rheumatoid arthritis. And we call that seronegative disease. Another common question is, how is rheumatoid arthritis treated? We can do multiple things with treatment. We do a combination of medical therapy as well as natural remedies. And some natural remedies are things like tart cherry juice, turmeric, compression gloves, and I have even had patients use things like paraffin wax if the hands are the most common joints that bother them. If there's mild disease, oftentimes we put patients on anti-inflammatory drugs like over-the-counter or prescription non-steroidal anti-inflammatories, so ibuprofen and Motrin, and sometimes we have to use a medication like Plaquenil. Now, in moderate to severe cases, we do have to pull out a little bit stronger medications, and those medicines are called immunosuppressants, and sometimes biologics, which are injections and infusions that are done at various times throughout the year. If you are worried that you have rheumatoid arthritis, you should have a conversation with your primary care doctor and ask for a referral to a rheumatologist.
Thanks for being with us today. I want to talk a little bit about the process for someone who signs up with a financial advisor. What should they expect? What's the cycle of the process for doing that?
Absolutely. Paula, as we look at this process, it can be exhaustive for people. I mean, there's a lot that goes into it. I like to look at it as building a house. When you build a house, if you've ever had that experience, there's a lot that goes into the planning, the approach, and it's very important you share a lot of details. So what we like to do is break it up into smaller chunks so that the clients aren't overwhelmed by it out of the gates. And so the 4 phases of that process include really the first part, which is called discovery. In that phase, what we're going to ask the client to do is come in with the information that they have, their budgets, what their investments are, what their goals and strategies are, what they'd like to accomplish with their assets, and what they'd like to do in life. And from that information, we'll go into the second phase, which is recommendations. And so there's a lot of things from a fiduciary standpoint we need to be cognizant of. One of those is like their ability to handle volatility in the market. So we look at the risk profile for that client, and from there we can determine what kind of investments are the right vehicles for them. And then from there we kind of broaden the picture to say, what's your time horizon for whatever the goal it is. Maybe you want to start a business, maybe you want to retire, maybe you want to figure out a plan to pass on your assets to the next generation. Whatever it is, we'll spend that time in thought and try to give you some recommendations based on what you shared in discovery. From there, we move into a phase of implementation. And this is honestly probably the easiest, most straightforward part, because we've already laid the foundation for the important things, right? And so it's now a matter of transferring assets, making sure that the plans that we were discussed are agreed upon, and it just at that point is just going through and getting the client started. And then finally, after we've got all those things in place, it moves into maintenance. And so depending on the client's needs, we might meet with them 3 to 4 times a year, maybe 1 to 2 when things are in place. And in that phase, we would basically want to make sure that, we look at all of our plans as a living, breathing thing, right? It's never meant to be sedentary. Things change over time. You get unexpected expenses. You have different things that affect you. So it's very important we are cognizant and we're always moving in that direction for the client.
Do you find most people know what they want? What they want to,
Great question. Some are very specific. Some have really never spent time and thought on it. And so it really is a broad brush right there.
But then you need to take some time and just self-indulge, right? And think about how do you want to live the rest of your life once you retire?
Absolutely. And it's especially important when you consider, the duration for your legacy money, right? I mean, that you've worked so hard, you've done so much in your life. So what does it mean for you, beyond your years? Does it mean you give to charities? Does it mean you're, doing different things for your kids? I mean, there's so many things you can consider.
And for people, we've got about 30 seconds left, for people who don't think they have that that additional income to save or to put up for something in retirement, they're just living day to day, how would you advise them?
I would say there's always a way to find the money, right?
Yes.
It's a question of your choices, right? There's always a way that you can come up with a different strategy to either save more or invest more.
Yeah, so you do have discretionary income somewhere. You just
Somewhere. Is it in Starbucks?
Right.
Where is it at?
And make certain that you plan to live the best life as you age.
Absolutely.
Now, thank you so much. I'm looking forward to aging and living the best life I can possibly live.
Me too.
Thank you. Thanks
bet.
for being here. Wow, there is so much information shared today. Let's make certain that we take this information and use it and share it with other people. Thank you for watching Real Possibilities.